So you've saved $1 million for retirement. You're age 59 and a half, and you're thinking about saying, hey, I don't want to work anymore. Take this job and shove it. Can I spend $100,000 a year and live well in retirement? Welcome back to the On the Money YouTube channel powered by Allied Wealth. I'm your host, Ryan Wheelis, where we help you solve the retirement equation and how to live the next 30 to 40 years without your paycheck and not run out of money or income in the process. So in today's video, we're going to take a deeper dive than we normally do into some actual financial planning and go through a case study with these folks here who were, in fact, age 59 and a half years of age. They had saved $1 million for retirement. And so kind of go through what we did for them and the process that we would do if you come into our office and we work with you on a written comprehensive financial plan. So let's jump in here. The first thing is, they have the usual questions, right? I mean, how much can we spend and avoid running out of money? What if the market goes down? What about healthcare costs? What about taxes? When do we take Social Security benefits? Should we do Roth IRA conversions? And when should we do those? What contingencies should we build into the plan? And then how do all these decisions, all these kind of things working together and these pieces coming together, how do the decisions that we make to put those pieces together, how does that impact us, 20 years into the future, 30 years into the future? How does it impact our legacy? All these are super important questions to answer before you take the plunge. All right, so let's look at the numbers. So Mike and Sally's numbers are, they're both age 59 and a half. Their combined income was $120,000 a year. They have no debt. Their home is paid for. It's valued at $300,000. And they put two kids through college, just like a lot of the folks we work with here at Allied Wealth and On the Money. Mike's got $600,000 in his 401k. It's currently in a 60-40 allocation. Sally's got $300,000 in her 401k, currently in a 60-40 allocation as well. So they're matched risk tolerance-wise and allocation-wise. Mike and Sally have saved another $100,000 in a joint investment account. Some of that's sitting in cash, some of it's invested. And their goal when they came to us is to spend $100,000 a year in retirement. They are planning on taking Social Security at age 67. In fact, Mike's got his spreadsheet out, and the exact timing for Social Security is 67. He was adamant to do that. And we're going to plan for them a life expectancy of age 90. All right. So when they came in, the first thing we did is we took their current scenario. We want to show you, hey, is what you're currently doing going to work for you or not? All right. So based on these parameters, we took their information and we built for them an initial plan, kind of a discovery plan, right? So we take all their portfolio numbers, we take the savings, we take the income needs, their desires, and we put that into a plan. And what we came back with is what we call a long-term probability of success number. And sadly, to Mike and Sally's dismay, they were quite shocked when I showed them this. They only had a 35% long-term chance of success or probability of success of meeting their goals. And again, there's our goals. I'll put them back up here one more time on the screen of meeting these goals. And so when I showed them these numbers, they were really kind of taken back. I mean, they're like, Ryan, we've done everything right. We've saved money. We paid our house off, put our kids through college. We lived the American dream. And you're telling us that we only have a 35% chance of success in retirement. I said, guys, listen, this is why you come to someone like us. We are able to help you navigate things like this. And there's a lot of things that we can do or levers we can pull to help get that probability of success much, much higher. And here's just a couple of examples of some things that we can do, folks. They can work longer and save more money, right? Working longer means that we've got a longer time period of income coming from our paycheck from the job, which means we're not having to take money out of our portfolio for retirement income purposes, right? In addition to that, if you're working more, you're likely contributing to a 401k. And if you're contributing to a 401k, your asset base not only grows, you get your employer match as well on top of that. So your asset base grows. And really it grows in two ways. Again, you're not taking income from it and you're adding to it. So the fact you're not taking income from it absolutely helps it grow. And that's one thing you can do to help increase that long-term probability of success. Another thing is you can do is spend less per year, right? You can take more risk and increase returns. We see people do that or try to do that a lot. And there's times to press the gas, and there's times to slow the car down, so to speak. You can be more conservative. Sometimes being more conservative can absolutely help if you're a big risk taker. you can better time Social Security, right? So maybe you take it at 62, maybe you take it at 67, maybe you take it at 70, but there's ways to strategize around Social Security timing to where you can actually increase your probability of long-term success. In addition to that, you can consider doing Roth IRA conversions. Now, why do I say that? Taxation is a huge expense and therefore a huge drag on your portfolio. And in Mike and Ginger's case, it's a really big deal because if you look at the majority of their money, is inside of retirement accounts. We often call them tax-invested retirement accounts in our industry. And to that end, if all your money's in an account that when you take money out of it, 100% of the dollars are taxed, you've got a tax problem, right? And that tax problem will only get worse as time goes on. So doing some Roth IRA conversions can actually help mitigate that tax liability over a longer period of time because you're in essence paying taxes while we believe they're on sale today versus where they may be in the future. And most people, if you ask them today, do you think taxes will be lower or higher in the future? They're going to say much, much higher, all right? The next one here is you can develop an income plan that reduces spending with age. And this is something that we got into with Mike and Sally, for instance, because when they came to see us, they thought they needed $100,000 a year every single year for the next 30 to 35 years. And the reality is, folks, you kind of have to look at retirement in phases. When you retire, every single day becomes Saturday. What day do you go to the hardware store at Home Depot and go out to dinner and go to the movies or go shopping or go see the grandkids or go get your hair done or nails done or haircut or go to get new tires in the car or an oil change or whatever it is? You do that stuff mostly on Saturday. And when you retire, every day becomes Saturday, right? So it's one of these things you really got to think about. And so what we see is that spending actually kind of starts at a higher level in the front years. We call those your go-go years, by the way. And then in the mid years, we call those your slow-go years, where you start slowing down some. And then in the latter years, we call those the no-go years because your get up and go, done gone and got up and went, right? And that's just kind of what happens. And so your spending curve typically, kind of goes like this. It peaks and kind of goes back down the other way. Now, one thing that can cause that spending curve to keep going up is the potential need to cover long-term care issues or cost, right? Those can absolutely keep that curve going up. But we've got plans for that, all right? We'll talk about that here in just a minute. We start talking about contingencies and the plan. But all of these are things that we can do to help, the levers we can pull, so to speak, to help increase the long-term probability of success and get them in what we call the confidence zone, all right? So we went to work for them, and one of the first things that we did is, okay, guys, listen, I know you think you need $100,000 a year every year going forward, but the reality is you really don't because your spending will slow down as you slow down in life, all right? So what we did is we built a go-go year spending plan. So for 12 years and from 60 to 72, they do in fact spend $100,000 a year in income, all right? Then we get to the slow-go years where we drop the income down to $75,000 a year, and that's from age 73 to 80 because again they're traveling less. They're your body's slowing down some. You may not want to hop on an airplane and at 73 and fly on an 18-hour flight to Sydney, Australia because it'll wear you out with the jet lag and just the overall travel back and forth, right? Nothing wrong with doing that in the go-go years, though. All right, that's what they're here for. And then the no-go years are from age 81 to 92. So we reduce the income each year or each period. And what that did is it actually reduces the long-term strain on the portfolio, and it got the long-term probability of success up to 81%. And that's in the confidence zone, all right? So when we're doing this planning with Mike and Sally, as soon as I showed them the 35%, I clicked and said, guys, let's just think about this for a second and develop a phased income plan, which we did for them, and see if we can get that long-term probability of success much higher, and we did, all right? So as part of that, once we've got that phased income plan built, we've got to look at some other stuff, right? Because that's just part of, hey, we can take this much money, but how do we make all this work, right? There's got to be more under the hood, all right? So to that end, what we do next is we want to identify what we call spending gaps, all right? So what you'll see here is a dotted orange line. It may be harder to see on the screen here, but it's there. And what that is the go-go years, the slow-go years and the no-go years income demands in the portfolio. Now, one thing about this that I'll back up to here is we do grow these for inflation. So when they start getting the $75,000 at age 73, it's increased. That amount's grown by 3% every year. I think we did 2.51% on this plan for illustration purposes, but it's grown to that point. So the $75,000 number they start getting at 73 is actually much higher than that, and I'll show you that here in just a minute. All right, but nonetheless, what we see here initially is that there's a very large shortfall. So this red here, right here, it indicates a very large shortfall. And what that means is that their portfolio has to produce all their income in the front years. Now, that's pretty important, right? Because that subjects them to some major vulnerability. In fact, these income numbers are pretty high because they're also growing for inflation. So if in the front years, they experience what we call sequence of return risk, to where the portfolio doesn't do as well, or there might be 3 negative years in the market, for instance, like 2000, 2001, and 2002. All right, that's an issue that can really hurt them. So that's sequence of return risk that can come into play and cause this plan to get derailed very quickly. So we've got to be mindful of that. And as your advisor and your planner, these are things we work around to help mitigate that downside risk and maximize that upside return where we can, and try to keep this from happening to you, right? Now, one of the things that's interesting about this is what? They took Social Security here at age 67, okay? Well, what that does is it makes this income shortfall number higher, right? Which means that they've got an income shortfall here, and that all equals $1 million, that we've got to use their base portfolio of $1 million to grow and produce income so that there is no income shortfall, all right? And there's ways to do that with all types of investments. We can buy dividend-paying stocks. We can buy bonds. We can buy certain annuities that produce income. We may do a blended approach between some annuities and some bonds and some stocks and some dividend-paying stocks. We can do structured notes. You can buy rental income, real estate income. There's all kind of things we can do to generate that income that we need, all right? So, but nonetheless, one of the key things I want to point out here is this. You know, Mike was adamant about taking Social Security at 67. He says, I just feel like I get more out of the system if I take it at 67. And I said, Michael, here's one thing we need to consider, bud. If we take the Social Security income earlier, maybe right here at 62, what happens is the Social Security income starts filling up a good amount of this gap right here. And now you're in a situation to where you're not as subjected to sequence of returns risk or drawing out too much money in the front years and derailing the overall retirement plan. So it's just, just trying to get you thinking here about ways to do things and levers that we can pull as advisors to help mitigate downside risk of derailing the retirement plan because we took too much money out on top of market losses in the front years. So we got to identify your income gaps and your income shortfalls. Income gaps, again, to me, are, if I've got money coming in from Social Security, and that's $30,000 a year, for instance, and my non-discretionary income items are $60,000 a year. And again, non-discretionary income items are your food, your water, your shelter, your clothing, access to health care, medicine, transportation, all the things you must have in retirement to have any quality of life whatsoever. We want to make sure that you have coverage for those things, right? Because you can't even cover those things, you can't retire and enjoy life, right? So we want to identify income gaps and then income shortfalls and build a plan around that with various investment options that fit your risk tolerance, your risk capacity, and what you're comfortable investing your money in. And no two investment strategies are exactly alike, folks, because everybody's got a unique financial fingerprint and they want to do things certain ways. And that's okay. We can serve you in that capacity here at All the Money at Allied Wealth. All right, the next thing is Social Security, which we already kind of talked about. And so at 67 was a current scenario. We could take it at 62, right? Or we could take it at 70. One of the things I want to point out here, though, is if we take it at 67, our probability of success is 81%. If we take it at 62, it's still 81%. But you would say, hey, Ryan, the probability of success is the same. Why would I not take it at 67 versus 62? Well, the reason why we consider taking it at 62 if we're retiring, in fact, at 60, is, again, the portfolio doesn't have to produce that additional income for those front 7 years. And that can really be a long-term help in the sense that we start having some market volatility in those front years to help make sure the plan stays on track. But folks, this is some stuff that we sit down with you every single year. You know, these plans, the spending plans, the income plans, the investment plans, the overall retirement plan is dynamic in nature. It moves around. Things change. We have to pivot. We have to move. And part of being able to do that effectively and well is good communication and good reviews. And the cool thing about this is, let's say that we went to age 62, all right? We got to 62 at the end of the year, the market was up $100,000, $300,000 in our portfolio, just did really well. But I'm gonna say, you know what, guys, that was a good year. Let's delay Social Security one more year. Why would we do that? Because if we delay Social Security one more year, we get almost an 8% bump in our benefits, all right? And maybe we go next year. Maybe the market did well again. Maybe we delay it till 64, or now we've got enough money in the portfolio to where waiting until 67 makes sense. But the bottom line is you have to be a little bit flexible, a little bit dynamic in your planning because things can change in a moment. And we need to build contingencies into the plan. And part of doing those contingencies is looking at stuff like this on a yearly basis with you because, again, your financial plan is not some static dead thing. It's living and breathing, and it will need oxygen. It'll need support, and it'll also need the ability to be able to change when market conditions change, when interest rate environments change, when economic factors change, when you change as well. So there's a lot of pieces that go into this, all right? So the next thing we look at is what about taxes and Roth conversions? Well, if you look here on this column right here, this is the taxes on $100,000 a year in income, okay? As an advisor, I don't see anything that I don't like here. This is not absurd in any way. And so, if this was much higher, it was 25, 30%, 35%, we would certainly be having a conversation about Roth IRA conversions. But because it's a very low number relative to the amount of income they're actually getting and spending, to me, it doesn't make sense to do Roth IRA conversions. And the reason why is we have to pull money out of the IRA and 401k. We have to use money from the same account to pay taxes on that, all right? And so and then we're spending our income out of it as well. So what winds up happening is we spend too much money out of the portfolio for taxes and the conversions on top of our income, and we can really hinder the portfolio's ability to provide us income over a long period of time at the level of lifestyle we wish to live. So in this scenario, I would not recommend Roth IRA conversions, again, because the taxes aren't really bad. As a financial planner and advisor, I don't see anything here that's alarming to me at all. By the way, we talked about growing the income for inflation. This is the retirement-based income, and here's the go-go years, and now here's the slow-go years. And remember, the slow-go years, we dropped that down to $25,000 a year. $25,000 a year, but that was grown for inflation all this time. So what you wind up getting is that $35,000 a year in income. So just keep that in mind that we do grow those numbers for inflation up until the point that you get them and keep growing them after that for illustration purposes. All right. So that's about Roth IRA conversions. We can certainly do them. There's times that they make sense. And there's times they simply don't, all right? So how do we get the probability of success even higher, right? And this is another conversation that we have a lot of times because people go, Ryan, 81% chance is pretty good, but is there ways to get it higher? And the answer is sure there are, all right? So one way is to work longer, all right, and save more money and therefore spend less out of the portfolio in the front years, or make your portfolio produce your income over a longer period of time. For instance, if they're going to live 30 years in retirement and they work 2 more years, well, now they're going to live 28 years into retirement, okay? So their portfolio has to produce that income for 2 less years. In addition to that, they save more money, all right, in their 401ks. Maybe they get some market growth on top of that. And so just working 2 more years took their long-term chance of probability of success from 81% up to 92%. And that's a pretty big deal right there, folks. And by the way, I have people ask me, Ryan, I want to get mine to 100%. Can you do that? And the answer is yes, we can. But here's a challenge with 100% probability of success, folks. I believe you're not living enough, and I believe who will benefit the most from a 100% chance of success is actually your beneficiaries, all right? Now, on the channel, we joke about beneficiaries. I know that you got kids at home that are just, doing so well financially and sending you thank you mailbox money checks every month. Mom, thank you. Dad, thank you checks. Comes to the mailbox every month. And I know we got kids that out there that aren't as good with money and that sort of thing. And, we always say that, hey, it's okay to leave your kids money, but do it in a smart way and don't do it at jeopardizing your quality of life and your golden years. Because again, if we get that chance of success to 100%, that's going to benefit your kids. I like to keep the number around 85%. That tells me that you're living a good life, you're enjoying yourself, and you're still going to leave your kids some money with that 85% chance of long-term success. So don't worry about getting it to 100. I think it's too high. I think 85% is a great number. And these folks at 81 aren't far from 85 at all, right? So to that end, if they did work 2 more years, they could have a higher chance of success. And that just shows you, hey, Ryan, we're doing this plan. We're getting ready to retire. We've hired your firm to work with you. Now, what if we did work one more year? I can work one more year and get a bonus next year, or now they're giving out, packages we hear sometimes. Should I work this year and get the package money on top of that? These are all things we can help you navigate by looking at this stuff before you retire, and we continue to look at this stuff into retirement to help keep you on track and make sure we keep that probability of success in that comfort zone and keep you smiling down the golden year highway, all right? So next thing, another way to increase probability of success. Well, remember, Mike and Sally wanted $100,000 a year in retirement income. Cool. All right, no problem. But what if they weren't comfortable with 81% chance? Okay. Maybe they want again to be higher. Well, if we reduce their base living expenses that runs the entire course of their retirement from down by just $5,000 a year, which means in this case, that instead of spending $100,000 a year in the first 12 years, they've gone down to spending $95,000 a year. Well, look what that does, folks. It takes the long-term probability of success just from doing that $5,000 a year less expenditure from 81% up to 92%. All right, so pretty cool there, right? 91%. So pretty cool there. So what can we do? We can work longer. We can save more. We can spend less in the front years and slow our spending down. All those things will help. Also, have people come to me sometimes and say, Ryan, what if I, put more risk in the portfolio and we grew the money, at a more aggressive rate? And folks, that can work too, as long as the markets do well. But what tends to happen is the markets don't do well, your drawdowns get pretty big, and increasing returns and chasing returns and layering on risk can actually have a negative effect on long-term probability of success, and we've seen that happen a lot of times, all right? So just increasing returns may not be the best idea. The other side of that coin is being conservative, right? You can be so conservative that your portfolio doesn't produce enough income, and you wind up drawing that portfolio down over time, and that can also lower your long-term probability of success, all right? So again, these are things that we look at on an annual basis. I mean, do we project numbers at, 6%, 7%, 8%, whatever it is, and where is our portfolio tracking with those numbers, and are we on track? And what we actually can do is download your portfolio into the software and pull up your actual account history, and it'll look at all those numbers and say, yeah, you're on track, or no, you're not on track. And then we go to work. Okay, are you spending too much? Are we paying too much in taxes? Can we take less out of the portfolio? Do we need to make some changes to the investment portfolio, the investment mix? Are there some other opportunities out there that we're missing that we could be engaging in to help get that number higher and those numbers looking better? And again, these are all things we look at on an ongoing basis because, again, the retirement plan is a living, breathing thing, folks, all right? Next thing, contingencies, right? This is such an important thing because you need to think about contingencies and what happens if this happens, all right? And let's just look at some of this stuff. This shows a 23% market crash, all right? If there's a 23% market crash and the market goes down 23%, stays down 23%, meaning it happens and these folks panic sell at the bottom and never get back in the stock market and keep drawing money out of their portfolio, what drops their long-term probability of success down to 26%. So we want to make sure that we're not taking too much risk in our portfolio, all right? Because if we are and the market crashes, we could find ourselves in this situation that's pretty darn scary considering we left our job and we're depending upon our life savings to give us income and finance our lifestyle in our golden years. Now, folks, there's ways to allocate capital around in various products and programs, and we like to use what's called a balanced approach here at On the Money and Allied Wealth that can help mitigate this downside risk substantially, all right? So just to get you thinking, these are things we need to be thinking about, all right? The next thing, inflation. Inflation's a big topic right now. So what if inflation goes, I think we did this at like 2.6% in this plan. What if it goes to 4.13% and stays that way over the life of the plan? Well, if that happens, your probability of success goes out of the comfort zone down to 68%. That can be pretty scary, all right? And so the things that we can do, well, sure, we can adjust the portfolio in a way to manage inflation, meaning we can move assets into things that do well in an inflationary environment. And that could be a conversation or the flip of a button or a few switches or finding some products and programs and investment portfolios out there that really hedge out inflation risk, right? And those same inflationary pressures or portfolios may not do as well in a non-inflationary environment. So as soon as the inflation goes the other way, we might switch gears and go a different direction in the portfolio, all right? Next thing is you've heard me talk about this on my radio show. You've heard me talk about it on the YouTube channel. Did a video on this. And I have never been more fearful in my life than I am today about a 20% haircut in Social Security benefits. It could absolutely positively happen, all right? Which in their case, in Mike and Sally's case, it may beg the question, maybe I do want to get it at 67 so that when that 20% haircut comes, it's not as impactful to my overall situation, all right? So to that end, I believe that, if we need to think about Social Security cuts more now than ever, and that's due to the political environment, that's due to what's going on with taxes and debt. And no, in order to fix the Social Security system, we've got to increase taxes, all right, or we've got to cut benefits. And that's the only two things that we can do, all right? Well, no politician is going to run for office in any capacity and get elected talking about they're beating a drum, hey, I'm going to raise your taxes, all right? Oh, I'm going to cut your Social Security benefits too. That's not going to happen, folks. And so I think what's going to wind up occurring is the status quo will maintain. And around 2032, 2030, whenever it happens, there's a strong chance that there's going to be some cut or higher taxation somewhere on Social Security benefits. And it's a real viable thing. Now, folks, don't worry. There are ways to insure around that risk. Several ways to do it. And check us out at allywealth.com. You can call us at the office as well. We can talk about, engage with one of our advisors and talk about how we help you mitigate that risk and what those programs are, because they're out there and viable, and they can absolutely mitigate that risk. And the sooner you get into one, the less money you have to put into it to mitigate that risk of Social Security cuts being cut in the future. But again, folks, I'm not trying to scare you, but what I am trying to do is to get your mind thinking, and these are the things that we need to be considering when we're doing a written, comprehensive, living and breathing retirement plan, all right? Another contingency is this, hey, Ryan, you're projecting a 6, 7, 8, 9% return, whatever it is, and we're not getting that. We got to fix this, right? What's going on? So to that end, if that's the case, it's something that we need to think about. And we need to worry about and plan around, and also make adjustments on the fly when we need to increase the returns or keep the portfolio going in the right direction. The bottom line, though, is that we should not just look at our portfolio as fire and forget. And a lot of people say, well, Ryan, I should do indexing in my portfolio, or I should be actively managing stocks, or I should be tactical, or I should be a blend of all these things, or I should have safe money. And folks, all those are options for you, but none of those options work 100% of the time. So it's oftentimes they have elements of all those things in our portfolio, because we know they don't all work 100% of the time, but when working together, they do quite well, all right? But we may need to make adjustments to these things on the fly as we keep going, and that's really important to stay connected to your money, connected to your financial plan, and connected to your financial advisor and your financial coach as you go through your golden years, all right? Next thing. This is a big one, right? Long-term care expenses, okay? And I've got a different take on this I'm going to share with you right now, but this, and I'm sorry, Mike, I'm the one, you're going in the home at age 89, you're going to be in there for 3 years, and the cost is $100,000 a year. Well, that leaves Sally with a 73% chance of success. She's the same age as Mike is. And that's not awful. I think they're still going to be okay for the remainder of their life expectancy, which we did to 92 on their go-go, slow-go, and no-go year plan, phased income plan. So, but to that end, let's think about something, all right? Yes, the cost of long-term care is $100,000 a year. But remember, Sally and Mike have a home that's paid for that's probably been appreciating over time. So a couple things that can happen here. They could sell that home, right? And they could downsize into, a smaller home or assisted living facility or a apartment or something like that, over 55 community, something like that, all right? And use the balance to fund long-term care needs, and that would not impact the long-term probability of success at all. But the bottom line is they do have a house out there. That house is paid for. It is an asset. There are several ways to utilize that asset to inject capital into the plan to keep this long-term probability of success higher, up around 82%, 81% where we had it. So those are just some tendencies that we think about, folks. So, what I just walked you through is really an exercise to really get your mind thinking. And this is a lot of stuff that we do with our clients at Allied Wealth when we are doing these financial plans. And so much of the stuff is just like, how does it fit together? What decisions do I make? When's the best time to do this? What about taxes? What about conversions? What about long-term care? What about IRMA? What about Medicare? All these things are pieces that we have to sit down with you and go through this stuff together and help you navigate the decisions and put you on the best path forward for the best success. And our goal here, folks, is to help you live the best life you possibly can with the resources you have to work with in your golden years through good financial planning. Thanks so much for watching the video, folks. I'm the host of the On the Money YouTube channel, Ryan Wheelis. If you like the content we're putting out, hit the like down below, hit the subscribe button as well. Feel free to comment in the comment section as well. And thanks so much for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Allied Wealth On the Money YouTube channel.